Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 22, Child Lock. It was still dark outside, but the rain had stopped. Jake could see the parked black car that had passed them at the gates. Rayburn dropped Jake onto the floor and pressed a button on his keys. The lights flickered and the locks popped open. Jake tensed. He looked around for somewhere to run. Every instinct in his body, every feeling, every bone was screaming out for him to run. Too late. He felt Rayburn's meaty hand gripping his hood.
"That would be a mistake. We're going to take good care of you, don't worry. As long as you show the boss where you've hidden his package. Don't worry, he isn't far away."
The big man scowled.
"Likes me to do his dirty work."
He wrapped Jake's hood around his fist and banged him roughly against the car. Jake sagged to his knees on the gravel, and the man picked him up and effortlessly threw him onto the back seat. Jake immediately tried the opposite door, but it was locked. He was trapped. Seconds later, the man was in the driving seat. The engine softly purred into life. Jake watched from the window as the car crunched its way slowly along the long gravel drive. Somewhere out there was Stiffkey, waiting for him, counting on him. He unzipped his rucksack. The box was in there, still safe, and Cora's trophy too. He flipped open the lid, waiting for her to appear. Nothing. He peered inside the trophy. It was empty.
"Looking for me, precious?"
came a voice from the front seat. He glanced up to see Cora smiling at him. "How did you get there?" he blurted out.
"What's that?"
barked Rayburn.
"You just keep your mouth shut."
Rayburn couldn't see Cora. Maybe he wasn't sensitive to the presence of ghosts. Cora held up her hand and her hockey stick materialised in it.
"Want me to bash him?"
She waved the stick threateningly. Jake shook his head and mouthed the word child lock. Cora looked puzzled. "What?" He pointed to the dashboard. "Unlock the doors," he mimed.
"This one?"
asked Cora, flicking the hazard lights on. Rayburn grunted and turned them off. Cora tried another button. The radio came on. Then she tried the windscreen wipers. Then the indicators. Each time Rayburn turned them back off. He was getting increasingly annoyed. She laughed and pressed them all at once. And new ones. Loads of buttons. A woman's voice sounded from the sat-nav box on the windscreen. "Resetting language to German. Guten Tag."
"What the blazes?"
Rayburn leaned over and pulled the box from its suction cups. He shook it. Then the car hit another speed bump and swerved to the left. He dropped the sat-nav and braked suddenly as the car mounted the grass, but not quickly enough to avoid shunting into a statue of a former headmistress, causing Jake to slide off the seat onto the floor. The car door opened. Cora was standing there, saluting.
"It's quicker than just opening it from the outside."
And just like that, Jake was free and sprinting across the wet lawn, shoving the trophy back into his hoodie pocket as he ran, propelled by the elation of escape, running like he'd never run before. Behind him, he heard the car door slam. He glanced back and could see the bulky form of Rayburn loping after him. He scanned around for Cora. She was nowhere to be seen. She had to be back inside the trophy. He must have closed the lid when he put it into his pocket. There was no time to check. Rayburn was gaining on him. He sprinted for a copse of trees. It was still dark, and they might provide some cover. He reached the trees, but there was nowhere to hide, just the brick wall topped with iron railings that enclosed the school grounds. Jake jumped and grabbed at the bottom of the railing, his trainers desperately trying to find traction on the bricks, but there was no grip. He needed to find another way out. Jake jumped down and heard a thud on the ground next to him. His pocket was empty. "Cora!" He searched for the trophy in the dark amongst the wet grass and dead leaves. Rayburn's voice cut through the cold night air.
"Got you, you little..."
Jake felt himself lifted from the ground and then thrown onto the rough track. He lay winded, gasping for air. Looming over him, the chauffeur was holding a small wooden cudgel. He raised it above his head. Jake covered his face. "Please don't," he said, shutting his eyes and waiting for the final blow. It didn't come. He opened his eyes. Rayburn was lying motionless on his back. A familiar voice rang out. "Please," it said mockingly, "please don't." Jake pulled himself to his knees, still trying to catch his breath, and leaned over Rayburn's body. He was breathing, but a painful-looking hockey-stick-shaped welt was beginning to form on his forehead.
"We'd better get moving, Precious,"
said Cora, effortlessly climbing the wall as she found seemingly invisible footholds and hand grabs. She swung herself over the railing and lowered her hockey stick for Jake to grab onto.
"This thug's going to wake up soon, and you've got quite a lot of explaining to do."
That's the end of that chapter.
Cora is so funny.
She's a very handy friend to have. If you're going to have a
Yeah.
ghost friend, Cora's quite a good one, isn't she?
Yeah, and she's very funny.
Yeah. Excellent. Good. And so Rayburn, he's just made a lucky escape from Rayburn, hasn't he?
Mhm.
Yeah. Good.